Week, our country is recognizing the service and sacrifice of veterans. 61 years ago, 58 veterans and their families left McChord Air Force Base on a Northwest Airlines flight, and they vanished. The story of Flight 293 still has no ending for the families of those veterans.
Yeah, they've been sharing their story on an in-depth investigative podcast by our partners at Cairo Radio. Now, Gary Horker shows us a loophole allowed the military and our government to turn its back on so many local grieving families.
This has been the Cairo News Alert. First with news of the Northwest.
On June 3rd, 1963, a heartbreaking and mysterious story quietly began at McChord Air Force Base with a routine flight. 101 people boarded this Northwest Airlines DC-7 plane that morning. It was bound for a military base in Alaska. 58 members of the military, along with 22 family members. There were women, there were children, and a flight crew of 6, all based out of Seattle.
Roger.
It was 2.5 hours after takeoff, Flight 293 and everyone on it disappeared into the Gulf of Alaska. There was no distress call. There was no sign of trouble, no bad weather, and no trace of the plane or all those people in the water. Left behind were surviving families and friends of 101 people mysteriously lost at sea.
Included is my family member, Bruce Barrowman, who was on board as a buck private on his first assignment from Fort Ord, California to Fort Richardson.
Greg Barrowman's big brother, Bruce, was a kind, athletic, and ambitious 17-year-old who just joined the Army.
I was 8, pushing 9.
And John remembers hearing the news on the channel you're watching right now.
My favorite clown, J.P. Patches, was on.
Oh, hi there, boys and girls. I'm sorry I'm late.
There was a flash warning on the screen.
Here is a bulletin from CBS News.
That stated that there had been an incident that took place with a Flight 293 that left McChord Air Force Base.
Greg heard his big brother's name mentioned in the report, and days later the Army knocked on the Barrowman's door holding this telegram. Bruce was officially considered perished. Days after that, fragments of the plane, mangled seat cushions, and some personal items started surfacing, but no people. Pages of the official crash reports offered zero clues why the plane could have suddenly plunged 2.5 miles out of the sky.
Everybody had the same question that I've spoken to. What happened?
Now, Greg says because this plane was a chartered airliner and not an official military plane, the Department of Defense never again contacted any of the surviving families. They closed the case, and they refused to answer questions. And Bruce Barrowman was never considered missing in action because the Army says there was no action. His family had the Army play taps before a memorial flag his parents paid for, and then they buried an empty casket and were left with perpetual questions.
I'd like to see that we could see at least how it happened, if an engine came off or a loose propeller.
60 years to the day after that crash, Greg and the rest of the surviving families raised their own money to make their own memorial at Tahoma National Cemetery, and they started raising new questions about the military's responsibility to reopen this case. This timeless monument notes the untimely loss of lives like Bruce's. They're all missing, but none of them are forgotten.
I believe that the 7 to 10 minutes that they had in flight before it actually crashed intact, that they may have made peace with God. And if that being so, so have I, and hope to be reunited again.
Wow, a tragic mystery there. Now, Greg Barrowman is hoping that sharing the story will renew interest from the military and lead to peace that comes from finding the truth. You can catch up with all of Cairo Radio historian Felix Bonnell's deep dive 8-part Unsolved Histories podcast on the mystery of Flight 293, and we have a link on Cairo7.com.